Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. The value of Chinese brands is increasing. According to Hurun's Brand List 2016, the most obvious growth is seen in the private sector, with technology and film and television the standouts. How does the developmental trend of Chinese brands represent the country's economic transition? How has brand image in China internationally? And how will brand development contribute to transforming China from the world's factory to a power in intelligent manufacturing? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to be joined in the studio by Yi Min, Chief Advisor to MTR China, Charles Liu, founder of How Capital, and Xu Jing from Guanghua School of Management of Peking University. But before we get started, let's take a quick look at this background report.
Who is the strongest brand value owner among Chinese brands? According to the 2016 Hurun Brand List, Taobao surpassed Tencent with a brand value of 230 billion RMB for the first time, becoming the most valuable brand in China. China Mobile came second this year with a brand value of 227 billion RMB, and Baidu finished third with 218 billion RMB. The combined brand value of the 200 Chinese companies listed in the report reached 4.6 trillion yuan, up 7% year-on-year. Of the 200 companies listed, 139 have seen their brand values grow, and 97 are private businesses. Of the top 10 Chinese brands, privately owned brands accounted for half. 31 brands made it to the list for the first time. 27 are privately owned enterprises, accounting for 87% of all new brands on the list. The financial and property sectors have the most brands on the list, but technology recorded the biggest rise, with average value increasing by about 59%. The film and TV sector also enjoyed a high increase, growing by about 33%. Chinese manufacturing and Chinese brands have also raised their reputations in overseas markets. A global survey on China's national image in 2015 shows the top 5 Chinese brands among overseas respondents are Lenovo, Huawei, Alibaba, ZTE, and Haier. And the familiarity ranking of MI, WeChat, UC Browser, and other scientific and technological brands have improved significantly. The survey also showed that people in developing countries are more willing to buy Chinese brands, while markets in developed countries provide tougher competition.
Welcome to Dialogue. According to Hurun's Brand List 2016, Hurun is the founder of the rich list in China. The combined brand value of the 200 Chinese companies listed in the report reached 4.6 trillion yuan, up 7% year-on-year and a record high. Is this growth satisfactory, and what are its implications for you?
Okay, so I think this is something that we have been seeing, this increasing growth of Chinese brands, and this really represents, I think, a greater emphasis in consumers' choice. Like, consumers are greatly influenced by these strong brands, and these brands have better economic performance, and I think this shows a great trend that Chinese brands are gaining more acceptance in the marketplace and be able to charge a premium price and be able to secure its performance.
What do you think of the impact of having more Chinese brands?
I think the key reflection here is increasing quality. Brands would not stand if you didn't have better quality. I remember the days, for those of us who are somewhat older, the days of made in Taiwan electronics, or made in Japan, made in Hong Kong, and then for a while it was made in China, were not considered high quality products. But gradually this has evolved into higher standards of quality control and better satisfaction of the consumer, and hence you have valuation. If you didn't have the better quality, you would not have that valuation.
I'm afraid you won't disagree with Charles.
I agree with that. If you look at Chinese two characters, brand means quality and name, right? So in my word, I would like to say transformation. The transformation from lower value to higher value, from products level to technology level.
So high value added products will be the future of the Chinese economy. Now, 105 out of the 200 on the list are private brands. Is it a big surprise?
It's not a big surprise, I think. This represents, the country has a greater emphasis in innovation-driven economy. So that means, there are greater investment going into technology and R&D process. So I don't think this basically shows, the private brands actually has become, a bigger player in the marketplace. And yeah, this is not a surprise to me.
It's almost 50% of the whole list. What's your take?
I think one has to make a distinction between brands which are facing consumers and brands which are not facing consumers or facing other businesses. For example, Huawei is well known both for its handphones and also for its communication systems. But you have many products which are facing consumers only. So if you made that distinction, I think in the private sector, those that's facing consumers are much more flexible. They respond more quickly to the desires of the consumer. They're much more interested in what will move quicker, and they can actually perform a lot better than the major SOEs.
I'm afraid brand or branding is very much an overseas concept.
Foreign.
When do you think the Chinese become or started to become aware of the importance of having branding?
Well, to me, first of all, when I see the number, I think the private sector is too low, too small. Therefore, my thinking is, if the private sector is a bigger and a bigger group, because the company and the private sector is a smaller, like a small ship, you can easily catch up, like Dr. Chen said, easier catch up the market needs and the customer needs. And state-owned, for some industry, some customers like high-speed train, like Huawei, or like energy sector, may be easier to control, manage the resources for some sectors, not all. So by and large, I believe the private sector should be bigger than the current number.
There's no question about the dynamics of the non-public sector of the Chinese economy, but you fell short of answering my question directly about when the Chinese started to be aware of the importance of the quality.
It's really a question of quality. I remember even as recent as 10-15 years ago, many products produced in China went out and then came back and sold in China for a higher price because the exported products were of a higher quality. Why? Because they had to conform to more stringent standards, quality control standards. I don't remember which product it was, but recently there were some products which were recalled by their Western producers. But they were not recalled in China because they conformed to Chinese standards.
Right.
But they didn't conform to outside standards. I think the Chinese national standards for many, many quality of products really should go to the international standard rather than being below the international standards to satisfy Chinese consumers.
I'm afraid with the boom of e-commerce, particularly websites such as Xiaohongshu, young ladies, housewives start to do shopping online, trying to draw a comparison between the homegrown products and the European brands, and therefore they quickly come to the conclusion that the European brands are far better.
Exactly. I think competition is definitely a factor in this. Just follow up on Charles' point. I think, because Chinese consumers are beginning to see a lot of competitive products from, foreign companies, right? So they see, what great means, right? Before that, under the planned economy, the Chinese consumers did not have a choice. So they had to go with whatever available in the market, right? So once they see greater products and they know what a better quality and better image of the brand can connote. So that actually, I think, contribute a lot to Chinese brands feel there's a pressure for them to actually improve and to increase their brand quality.
At the very beginning of our interview, I should have asked one question at least. For example, the mere mention of a German product, what would cross your mind upon mentioning a German brand?
Good engineering.
Good engineering.
Right.
quality.
Yeah.
And yours,
And craftsmanship too.
not hard and dark. That's the German color.
No.
It means quality, of course, but it also means profits, the high value added profits. What do you think
Exactly.
of the burgeoning awareness about this particular regard?
Okay, are you talking about premium? Price premium?
The higher profits that come along with the branding.
Okay, so that's basically what we call it brand equity, right? So basically, brands can be able to actually charge much higher price based on its brand association in consumers' mind. So when consumers see this high quality brand,
They're willing to pay.
Yeah, they're willing to pay a higher price for the product that maybe actually costs a little. That means the profit margin is very high. Yeah.
I want to throw a different subject into exactly what you're talking about. German products, you also think about you're getting your money's worth. You're getting the value
Yeah.
for what you're paying for. But there's a much bigger picture behind that, because if it was still Deutschmarks instead of Euro, the German product would cost a lot more. There are many, many macroeconomic issues, and the German major transformation that took place more than a decade ago in breaking up the unions and transforming the whole labor force and so on and so forth has also contributed to creating better value at a lesser cost, higher efficiency.
And I'm afraid more Chinese are coming to terms with yet another part of the German image. Good brand means a good price, and good prices should not be negotiable. But the Chinese, I'm afraid, I'm not very confident about their ability to come to terms with the quality and the price that comes along with the good price. What do you think of the Chinese national character in always negotiating about having a relatively low price?
I like to add a word, craftsman spirit. So the craftsman spirit has no price. Let me share a little story. When I used to work in Shanghai many years ago, you know the Volkswagen joint venture in Shanghai, the first batch of the car quality has the quality was German made. Second couple of years later, the product's quality has different problems. So the investigation found there is a very simple issue that a German engineer, they hold wrench 10 seconds and count 1, 2, 3 until 10. After training, our local engineer only hold the wrench and suddenly release. Because of the metal tension, you have to hold the wrench 10 seconds. And then our operator just think, oh, that's stupid. Why I hold the wrench 10 seconds? What I heard the story from the joint venture. That's why I mentioned the, craftsman spirit. The spirit has no value, no price. You have to pay what you should pay.
Yeah, well-crafted products certainly deserve good price. Rupert Hoogworth, publisher of the Hurun Report, said most of the technology brands have become part of Chinese consumers' daily life. These brands will continue growing following domestic demand growth. How do you view the rapid growth of Chinese technology sector?
I think that Hurun's point is well taken. Basically, you see that the brands that appear very top on the list, like Taobao and Tencent and QQ or Weixin, WeChat, these are the things that our consumers are growing more dependently on these days, right? They can pretty much live without these, can't live without it. So I think technology has become an important part of Chinese consumers' lives, and this will become a strong force in, when they actually do better in the market, then they can get more back into their R&D process and technology advancement. So I think that definitely technology will become a strong sector in Chinese economy, and Chinese consumers will be more dependent on these technology innovations.
Yes, we are dependent on the use of mobile phones, smartphones,
Yes.
for example, e-payment. Elsewhere outside China, in European Union, for example, it's very difficult for you to use your smartphone.
There's a
and
very
do the
important
payment.
aspect to this in terms of what we just discussed in terms of technology. There are two critical factors here. One is the entire infrastructure in China was built over the last 10 years. It is new. It is very advanced,
Right.
and it is much faster than anything in Europe or the United States. What you have in the United States and in Europe, for example, in terms of payment systems, are legacy systems that goes back decades. But they don't have the capacity to make the new investment, or they're unwilling to make the new investment to make those changes. I'll give you a very simple example. When you use a debit card or a credit card, in Europe, you could charge 3.5 to 4%. In the US, it's 1.5 to 1.9%. In China today, 45 basis point, 0.45. Why? Because the system is much more efficient, much more efficient. Second, so we have a better infrastructure. Second, I think it's critical, is the enterprising spirit of the Chinese entrepreneurs who find areas where efficiency enhancement can be had. And that's how Taobao, even Yuebao, was discovered, because there was a margin, and the margin is rather substantial. So they find ways of tapping into these things, and as a result, benefited those who subscribed to it and made deposit to it. I think the enterprising spirit is very, very important.
Thank you very much. You are watching Dialogue with Madam Xu Jing, Charles Liu, and Yiming. We're discussing the impact and are burgeoning aware about the impact of Chinese brands. We'll be back in a short while. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Yiming, I wonder if you agree with Charles about the construction of a teller infrastructure and, of course, spirit of innovation in creating Chinese brands.
Yes, fully agree. And also, I like to add another aspect is leapfrog opportunities for Chinese market, because like Europe, like a US market, they have legacy, as you mentioned, but today we are completely new. We can take off from the leapfrog process. We can skip something that we already other market has proven a mistake or whatever. We can learn the experience. That's our opportunity for the new brand in the world, new production in the world.
The film and the television sector is another increasing highlight. However, some people are questioning the quality of Chinese film and TV works. Is that politically motivated? I mean, the scrutiny.
I think this basically echoes the demand from the consumer side. As Chinese consumer become more affluent, has more disposable income, they will basically have greater demand for like travel, leisure, and entertainment. So the rise you see in the entertainment industry or the TV and film industry basically corresponds to this demand, but I agree that basically this has been widely criticized for the quality or the ability to basically transform the Chinese culture into a more higher level. So
Culture industry.
No, in terms of this industry, I look at what different generations watch.
yeah.
Some of these movies, if you find the older generation, the mom and the pops and grandma, grandpa, they love it, but young people think it's garbage. That's because China has developed so fast in such a short period of time. You're actually having people from different generations or even different centuries living in the same society. But I think your description was really perfect. When you have wealth generated in society, what does middle class have that they didn't have before? Leisure time. What the entertainment industry tries to do is to monetize the leisure time, except that they've not been very sophisticated in doing it. It will take some time for them to do it, because the society is constituting many, many different pockets of markets, and it's very, very difficult to satisfy all.
On Chinese brand development, Premier Li Keqiang has proposed that we should cultivate the spirit of a craftsman to improve quality and create branding. It's what you said earlier. How should we understand the relationship between the craftsman spirit and the brand image? I'm not asking this question to repeat what he says, but
Yeah. So I think in the past decade, China really has embarked on, basically the industrialization process, where, things are made on a large scale and pretty much homogenized. But as the quality take off, when our companies are able to make higher quality products, I think the next step is to offer more individualized, more customized, and goes back to his point on, basically people are looking more on attachment between the cultural identity and myself, right? I'm a Chinese. I want to be using something that represents who I am, not just like American brand or some foreign brand, right? Because that's basically something that is not really relevant to me in that point, right? So I think in that case, Chinese culture needs to be manifested in the product offerings, especially like you were saying, craftsmanship. I think is something that we have had such a long history of it, and we actually reached the high point of that. I mean, long time ago, but
yes, we are proud of having a long history concerning craftsmanship. But why do you think we have such a wide discrepancy or gap between the Japanese products and the Chinese ones in terms of the quality? The Japanese are said to be crazy about the details of the quality, and they are endlessly working around the clock to fine-tune the quality. Not until 1960s.
Not in the 1960s.
And perhaps the same could be said about the German products.
In terms of the Taiwanese or German products are somewhat different. I think for many, many decades they've been good. But Japanese products in terms of electronics in the 1960s, at least in the US when I was there, was not considered a good product. You preferred an American radio than a Japanese radio. And it just took some time because craftsmanship is very individualized. Best that in a manufacturing process is actually quite difficult. Craftsmanship, German craftsmanship, or craftsmanship in general, are people who individually manifested their spirit of creating something good. The manufacturing process doesn't allow that. And it takes time to build into the manufacturing process the details that's required to make something really, really good.
The handmade craftsmanship is one thing. Electronic engineering is quite another, and the latter may have a lot to do with Germany and the brands of German products. Are you optimistic, Yimin, that China will fast catch up in terms of not only our public awareness about the branding, but taking Japan as an example, it could be just a major source of inspiration, so we'll soon, we are very confident.
Yes, I do. Because, as I mentioned, our transformation takes time. We do. I'll give you an example. The Chinese are very traditional craftsman spirit. I told you, my grandma told me, boiling eggs, you need 3 steps. Boiling, and cooling water, and leave there for 5 minutes. Who is doing that now? Because that's easy peeling, okay? But today, if you go to the restaurant or go to my breakfast restaurant, I cannot easily peel the eggs. That's what happened today. But in future, I believe when people respect what is called craftsman's spirit and respect what is a capital, in future, I believe this transformation will be well done in future.
Yeah, I think that goes back to your earlier question on why Chinese consumers are so price sensitive. Like they care the most about whether they are getting a bargain on things. And once we are over this stage, I think consumers start to appreciate something beyond, whether they get bargain for the money, right? So they start to appreciate craftsmanship, the aesthetics, and some other softer, things about the products, rather than just on the functional values of the products that provide.
But in addition to that, not only what you described is absolutely true, there's another very important aspect. Every society, when it goes through the first phase of wealth, is chasing after certain things. The first phase of wealth, not only in Japan, Taiwan, in Hong Kong, in South Korea, what did they chase after? They chased after what is seen as representing wealth and quality.
Signaling.
But it takes a while. It takes a generation.
Of course, on the primary stage of social and economic development, the consumers would be concerned more about haves and have-nots. On the second stage, it's more about the high value added. Value added. Let's look at the image of Chinese brands elsewhere. In Africa, for example, most of them are the catch-up economies. They were what we were in the early 1980s and much of the 1990s. The Africans are not stupid. They could also compare Chinese products with the European products. Many of the elites were well educated in Europe. So with the growing presence of Chinese investment businesses across the African continent, do you think the image of China is declining or the opposite?
I think it's increasingly going better. Take Huawei.
With the help of the Confucius, with the help of the Confucius Institution?
With the help of the increased quality perception in a lot of products that's being sold in these areas, as you know, for
But
example,
I'm afraid the scholars' comments are very different from behavior of the self-employed businessmen from China. For example, those from Guangdong, Fujian, they established their family business, small businesses, family-based small businesses across the whole of the continent, particularly corner shops in whatever small or medium-sized cities in whatever countries in the sub-Saharan region. They are everywhere. They are omnipresent. But the quality of the products they sell, I'm not sure about whether they are popular with the local consumers. Even, are you sure about the good reputation of the Chinese brands there, if we could call them branding?
I think two things. Quality is one thing. The other thing is the branding culture. I'll give you an example. I won't say any company, but there is a case, business case. Maybe 25 years ago, or one product's going to the American market. The logo is one black man, one black, one black boy and another white boy. Mm-hmm. The logo was exactly that. So that transformation, I think, is a wrong sort of message delivered to the local market. So we need to tackle the local market information and culture. That's another thing, very important.
Yeah, I think localization, that's what you're talking about, right?
Capture
Getting
culture.
to know what your local customers like, their preferences and their taboos and things that they should be
But
aware
the
of.
mom and pop shops are not into.
That's right.
Well, those are not be considered as
they're
brands,
not.
right?
That's right.
They're considered as brands.
Back to Africa, what do you think of the image of China?
I think things are going to change, and they're beginning to change already. What we had in terms of shipped out the Shenzhen, the Shanzhai, the fake cell phones and so on and so forth. Now, the cost of manufacturing for many of these products have fallen so much that you don't need to send garbage, and you can still get a good margin. Before, it was just sending really, really low quality, very, very cheap to gain that margin. And the market becomes more sophisticated, and they demand better things. They would like more functions on their cell phones. They would like more things that they can get out of their electronic products. And this is what's happening. We're not really talking about just the Chinese mom and pop shops there. We're talking about, 400,000 Africans sitting in Guangdong province shipping goods to their own home countries. And they know what the markets want. And they're going for higher end products now too.
I'm afraid we are not just talking about the quality of the products and of the services, but we are also talking about social responsibility
And
of
national
the company
image.
and the national image. For example, Bill Gates, Microsoft is more remembered for its Bill Gates Melinda Foundation in Africa to cure HIV/AIDS diseases. With that, we come to the end of this edition of Dialogue on the brands of Chinese products and what's behind that. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.